When I think of all those big action stars, what immediately comes to mind are the type of stories they've now defined themselves as. But the same goes for your average writers, which is why Blacklight started off the year with another generic and forgettable Liam Neeson movie. And wouldn't you know it, this film is actually just another retread of the same story that's been told a dozen times. So I've broken this film down into 3 main categories as to why this movie ended up being the way it did. Here's how generic movies are made. First, we need to define generic and identify how it falls into every single generic plot point and story beat in any Liam Neeson action movie ever. The thing about ideas and story beats that have been done a dozen times is that, well, we've seen it a dozen times. For reference, here's a few of the main generic plot points every forgettable action movie falls into, and you've definitely already seen a few of them time and time again. Some undercover guy gets his daughter or granddaughter taken from him? I've already seen it. Boss tries to steal the reporter's story? I've already seen it. A loyal agent questioning what they're doing and the orders they're following? We've seen it. And some big fight scene in a house? I've seen it. I've seen it better. And I specifically bring this up not to nitpick. Well, okay, not just to nitpick, but to point out that the easiest way to become a generic and forgettable movie is to become victim to the pitfalls. Nobody wants to see something that's already been done 1,000 times. Your film needs to stand out from the crowd. To put it into perspective, here's a clip from a Film Courage interview with Chris Gore.
I'll joke with a friend and I'll say my favorite Spider-Man movie is the one where Mary Jane is in peril at the end, which is pretty much all the Spider-Man movies. Or my favorite science fiction movie is the movie where that thing blows up at the end. That's every science fiction movie, right? Which is why, and The Empire Strikes Back was because it wasn't about we got to do and blow up the thing. That's boring. It's just creatively bankrupt, which is why Empire Strikes Back holds up. Everybody says, oh, it's the best Star Wars movie. I mean, you could argue, but it's because it didn't do that thing that happened in all the other movies. And so trying to go against doing that thing, or fighting a blue light. There's a lot of fighting a blue light that happens in films. Fighting a blue light, saving the person at the end, the thing that blows up at the end. And I say defy those cliches at all costs.
One of the strange things about my experience with this movie was how much it felt extremely out of order. It's as if they took every major plot point from a Liam Neeson movie, like we described, and then just proceeded to rearrange them. Here's what I'm talking about. For starters, the whole daughter and granddaughter are taken scenario, that's now pushed to the end of the film, so now it's not a driving force or motivation for our protagonist, like it usually would be. Or the friendship-breaking confrontation with his boss. Now this is at the very end of the movie. This is the big climax, I guess. This is how everything is resolved. Like, flippin' really? This? Or some guy is killed for exposing the big secret project. Even though by this time in the film, we're already aware that this project exists and some of the people behind it. So, yeah, there's not much mystery being set up here. And the thing is, telling the same story that's been told dozens of times is bad enough, but rearranging the order of events is going to do way more harm than good. Rearranging events introduces the risk of destroying specific cause and effect scenarios that have been constructed in the story. Pacing will be broken and continuity will be completely disjointed and disoriented. If a movie can find a way to simply rearrange the events of an already existing story to take it in a new and interesting direction and make it work, then by all means. But unfortunately, this doesn't apply to Blacklight. This, right here. This is a point that's been plaguing me in so many movies I've seen recently, and you'll find out why. To sum it up, every idea or story beat presented throughout this film is really only what it appears to be at face value, nothing more. Each plot point does the bare minimum to push the story, especially when it comes to the story's resolution. For context, how about we go back to the daughter and granddaughter scenario? Amanda and Natalie are only taken so that Trevor can have some sort of personal and emotional conflict with the antagonist. Now, to be fair, before we start off, there is actually one strong aspect here in the form of the conflict of Trevor's relationship with his family. He's a top-notch agent in his field, which has put him in a pretty good spot career-wise, but it's also affected the relationship with his family, specifically his daughter. The movie presents the main conflict between his career and his family. He wants to have both, but he can't. He tries to have both, but the further we go, the more things begin to fall apart for him in both worlds. So he's gonna have to choose. There's direct cause and effect. He takes time to spend with Natalie at school, but the result is Dusty getting away into a frickin' dump truck. He tries to do his job and uncover the strange conspiracy, but that results in him missing Natalie's play he promised he'd go to. And so the logical thing for the story to do would be to have Trevor pick a side, which he does, but that's where the film breaks. The choice for Trevor to finally go against the government isn't to finally get the life with his family he's always wanted, but it's just to uncover the conspiracy. That's it. He doesn't choose to go against them for his family, he does it to expose Project Unity, which is an extremely hollow motivation in of itself. In the context of the film, his family is removed because it's a distraction, which seems to be exactly how the writers felt about them too, honestly. His family is never used as leverage or as a means of revenge or anything. If anything, they're a distraction. They're not the real goal. And not only do they serve no other purpose, at the end of the film, Trevor gets his daughter and his granddaughter right back. No consequences whatsoever. And the relationship between Trevor and Amanda is just fixed now. Because reasons, don't worry about it. There was so much setup with this family dynamic with the consequences of wanting the best of both worlds. It was the thing this movie had going for it the most. And it just purposely blew it. Another point would be the antagonist, this guy, admitting publicly to his crimes and Project Unity. But like I said before, all it takes is one confrontation with Trevor. Super easy. Why didn't he just do this before? Would have saved the last 30 minutes, I imagine. Or the idea of his family being watched. The film constantly hints at a stranger Natalie might have seen watching them. This is set up to make us, the audience, actually feel for our characters. But this ultimately goes nowhere, and everything turns out to be alright, even though they had to relocate because of deadly assassins and stuff. Just don't think about it. The action scenes. The action scenes in this movie do the bare minimum. They're essentially what you would see from a Netflix film directed by Michael Bay. I mean, sure, watching a guy drive a dump truck like it's the latest Fast and Furious is cool, but why is this guy, who is a convicted agent, driving a flippin' dump truck like a madman? Yeah, fight scenes in a house can be cool, but why just engage in hand-to-hand combat when you have leverage over this? Oh, that's why. Okay. Beating up cops and security guards can make great fight scenes, but why is this federal agent beating up random cops and security guards? When you have action scenes just for the sake of action, you've probably got a problem in your script. Or how about this one? How about the news story itself? The entirety of the movie was spent on uncovering this conspiracy theory about Project Unity, so we could get answers and expose it to the people. Now this does get an actual wrapped up resolution. And by that, I mean your generic Hollywood ending to this sort of story. The characters sit around, read the article, and give themselves a pat on the back while they sip a cup of tea. I mean, come on, why see the effects of something sinister like this getting exposed to the public when we can watch our heroes sit back and talk about it? Yeah, 10 stars. Or if you want me to go even deeper, my last point would be about Project Unity itself. So in the beginning of the film, Sofia Flores is running for Congress as a voice for the people, but it's taken out. Why? Project Unity is revealed to be against the people. It even kills innocent people. But then we get a bit more context from Dusty. Right, so Project Unity was set up as this big bad enforcement of political power, literally silencing people. But based on what we just heard, it seems that Sofia was killed because of her potential as a liability, as being exposed to the truth. And in that case, her being an active voice for the people doesn't even matter, because that's not even why she was killed. And you'll notice this is the sort of case for the entire film. Characters aren't killed for being normal, innocent people. The only ones killed are those who get a little too close to this government force. In Dusty's confession, he tells us that he was one of the people sent to kill innocent citizens. We've never been shown anything like this, of course, but he gave us exposition, so it must be true, right? And link this back to the disappearance of Trevor's family, it holds even less merit. The casual reunion of Trevor and his family is proof that Project Unity doesn't give a shit about killing innocent people, or even keeping an eye on them in general. And this is just more proof that you can't just do the same thing twice, much less a dozen times. The saying, "give me the same thing but different," exists for a reason. It doesn't mean make the same generic action movie and rearrange the order of events, but it means to give us a fresh, new take on a story. Use plot points and story beats, but in different scenarios we haven't seen before. Place characters our protagonist loves in the forefront of the action, rather than off to the side. Give the audience a reason to care for the events happening, because if they don't care, you don't make your money back.